direct from the web. It's Billy Masters Live. And now, please welcome your host, Billy Masters.
All right. We're here. God willing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Billy Masters Live. Of course, I am your host, Billy Masters. It says so, right? Oh, Jesus, right there somewhere. Okay, somebody put up the day. Okay, thank you. Eventually, the people working behind the scenes will catch up to me. Today is Tuesday, August 18th. Welcome to Billy Masters Live. This is such an exciting show. Preparing for all of these shows can be a nerve-wracking experience because I have to do so much research and I have to figure out everything about all the guests. I didn't have to do any research about these people because these are kind of part of my family in an extended way. But before we get to that, let me just tell you, because it's been all over the internet, there is so much publicity. Thursday show, our special hairspray show, we have the Tracy Turnblad from the film version of the musical, Nikki Blonsky, along with the leading man, the Link, from the TV version of the musical, Garrett Clayton, plus members from the original Broadway cast, the National Company, doing a special, like, if we can pull this off, like, I may drop dead afterwards because it's taking years off my life, but it will be fun or it will be tragic. But either way, it will be memorable. Next week, we have another reunion. Funny Gay Males will be here next Thursday. Next Tuesday, we have novelist Christopher Rice, son of Anne Rice, will be here. I need another author for that show. So if you have suggestions as to like another author, a gay author, or somebody who you think would be a good pairing with Christopher Rice, I've been thinking about this and I have not come up with a good idea. So anyway, always open to your suggestions. You can watch all of our shows at billymasters.com/TV. On that website, you can just click on contact us, which is billy@billymasters.com. Email me, do whatever you want. Okay, I hope you all have like a lot of lube and tissues ready because you're going to go through them today. In 1998, now, of course, these are going to be little details that I'm sure I'm going to get wrong. 1998, the Celebration Theater, which, again, you would think see, this is what happens when you don't do your research. Oh, I'm not telling a personal anecdote because this whole show is going to be a personal anecdote. 1998, the Celebration Theater in West Hollywood was in trouble. It's a very small theater, nonprofit theater. I think perhaps the oldest continuously LGBTQRSTUV theater in the country, but I could be wrong. But, you know, let's pretend they are. They were in trouble. They needed money, as all nonprofit organizations. They were always scrambling, and they could have shut down. And the artistic director at the time, Robert Schrock, had a dilemma how to keep this theater afloat, and he came up with an idea. And so I'm going to start with him because, as all good ideas, they always start with conception. So please welcome the former artistic director and the I don't know, what are we calling you, conceiver, if we will, of Naked Boys Singing, Bob Schrock. Hey, Bob.
Hi, David. How are you? Oh, no shit. Hi, Billy.
No, David's coming on later. He'll be on next.
Okay.
He's backstage.
Oh, I don't know how I did that.
That's okay. Well, we're all
Billy, how are you?
interchangeable. Fine. It shows our memories are still intact.
Yeah.
So was I right? Was it 1998?
Yes. Yeah. It
Okay.
was 1998.
So had something happened to put the Celebration Theater in that precarious state, or was it just the usual, we're always scrambling for money situation?
Well, we were always scrambling for money, of course. But I had a couple of shows that I had high hopes for, and they both bombed. And
what were they, if I can ask?
It was a all male version of Carmen, um,
Oh,
and it was a ballet. It wasn't sung, and
right.
it was kind of hot, but
Yeah.
it just didn't come together right, and so and the other one was oh, Morticians in Love, and it was and it was about two morticians who found themselves in love over a dead body or two. It was really, really out there. And
It smells like a hit to me.
yeah, well,
Wasn't.
it stunk. so, so anyway, I needed, I'd seen an article on the cover of the calendar section of the LA Times about Gordon Davidson, the artistic director of the Marquet Perform,
Sure.
needed a cash cow, and there was this big picture of a cow on the front page, and I thought, this is exactly what I need too, is a cash
Yeah.
cow. And so I just thought, now what's my audience? What they like, of course, is musicals. So that's
And nudity.
and then the box office would keep telling me that anybody who would call for any show, the first question the audience member would ask is there nudity? So
Oh.
yeah, so duh, put them together, a musical about nudity. And
Did
so
you always think that it would be a review, or did you think of like a linear book show?
no, I wanted a review.
Okay, from the beginning.
Yeah, I wanted a review because I wanted a variety of songs that would address the topic of nudity that is not sexual nudity. And so that was, I didn't want to be gratuitous nudity. Whenever I would go to a show and they would say that there was going to be nudity, all I could do was I would sit there and, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? And
Sure.
so I thought, get it over with, get it over with right away. And so, bam, they come out of the fog and sing gratuitous nudity,
Yeah.
But
Well,
then
go ahead.
after I thought of the idea and thought, gee, this really might work. Let's see what I can come up with.
Yeah, and we should put it in
Well,
context that at
I
that
put
point,
the word out to some writers that I know.
Bob, hold on one second. What I was just going to say, to put it in
Well,
context, that okay, hello, Bob. We did have before
Okay.
then. There had been, obviously, there had been a history of gay theater having a lot of nudity. Hello, Naked Boy Singing. And we had David Dillon's Party. We had Ronnie Larson's shows. So there had already been some sort of a tradition of that.
Yes, of course.
Right.
And I wanted to get beyond that. I didn't want to, like I said, do sexual nudity. I wanted to do nudity that had a point, and nudity. I was in a naked show in 1970, I think, 1972 or something, in New York, and it was called The Dirtiest Show in Town. And
Oh, sure. Yeah.
it was a huge hit at that time. And it was, I want to tell you, that experience of being naked myself on stage, it was so liberating, and I
Really?
felt such freedom that I wanted really kind of to share that. And so this opportunity came to, kind of put that all, my experience, all together. And so, I got songwriters to submit songs, and the first one I got was David Pevsner's The Naked Maid. And I said, that's it. I've got a show.
Well, since we have him here, let's then bring in David
Okay,
Pevsner.
David.
Yeah, see, I told you you'd get him. So David was,
David, how are you?
David, now you had come from, you had been a performer and obviously a songwriter. Although, did I read that this was the first song you wrote?
Yeah, actually,
I didn't know that.
I can't remember whether it was Perky Little Porn Star or Naked Maid, one of those was the very first song I ever wrote. Yeah,
that's amazing. Now let's just say your background. You had been nude on stage already at that point. You had been in Party in New York. Was it Party?
I did it in New York. Yeah.
And so did you sign on when Bob called you about this and he told you this idea? What was your thought?
You know what it was? It actually, I didn't hear it through Bob. I heard it through Marty Casella.
Yeah, Marty Casella.
Oh, right.
Who was partnered with Patrick Quinn, if you remember Patrick Quinn. And I was coming out of one day, and Marty told me, he's like, "What are you doing besides the show?" I said, "Well, I started writing these dirty little fun little stupid little songs." He goes, "Well, a friend of mine is putting together a review in Los Angeles. Why don't you maybe submit them?" I'm like, "Well, nobody's going to take them. The subject matter is not right." I go, "What's the subject matter?" He goes, "Nudity." And I went, "Oh, oh my God, like who else would take these songs? This is perfect." So I ended up submitting 4 songs to you guys, to Bob, and they used 3 of them. So there you go.
Yeah.
What were the 3? So I know Perky Little Porn Star, Naked Maid.
And then Fight the Urge, about the 3 guys.
I didn't know you wrote that one.
Yeah, and I wrote that with a wonderful writer named Rami Sciarroni. I had done a show of his, and I loved his music, and it was a trio, and I didn't feel really equipped because I don't play piano. I didn't feel equipped to write something like a counterpoint, and so he sat down with me, and we worked together. We had the greatest time, and it worked out, and Bob used it, so I was thrilled.
And then I used a song of Ramey's too. One of the best songs in the show is "Window to Window," and so
which was in 2 parts too.
And so through David, I got Ramey in the show too.
Yeah, Ramey's great. I haven't talked to him forever.
So talented. He's wonderful.
Once you got the first song, did you at that point say, "Okay, we've actually got a show"?
I did, and I thought, this is right on, exactly what I'm looking for. And so I loved all of David's songs, and then I got what's commonly called "I Beat My Meat," and that's from Ben Schechter. And I thought, that's the first act ender. I've got that one too. So as the songs came in, I said yes, and I had like 50 songs submitted, and so
really?
but it was easy to choose the ones that I needed.
Well, one of the other writers is also here backstage, and
thrilled to have David.
And we've got another writer backstage. We've got Mark Winkler's here. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark. Hi, David. Hi, Bob.
Mark, how did you get involved?
Well, Bob Schrock's best friend was my husband.
Oh,
also. So we went to Carmen, the musical, and we loved it. And
you were the one.
We went to all of his shows at the celebration, and Bob did another show called Gay 90s Musical. Remember that, Bob? And I loved it, but he didn't ask me to write songs for it. And I was very upset. So when I remember we had dinner one night and Bob said, "I have an idea for this musical. It's called Naked Boys Singing. And would you write a song for it?" I said, "Yes." But the truth of the matter, Billy, is I've never been naked in my life. I'm a Jewish guy who never takes his clothes off. So I had to think about what could I write about being naked. And the one thing I liked beefy bears. So I wrote this song called Robert Mitchum about how I like masculine guys. So that started me writing songs on it. And I wrote it with Shelley Markham, who's a wonderful writer. But what else did you
contribute to the show?
Put the radio on.
Oh, sure.
Which was a fun song. But actually, I have the only song in the show that the guys have their clothes on. Robert Mitchum, they don't take their clothes off.
Well, see, because you didn't have nude experience. If you had taken your clothes off a little bit more, you might have had a show song.
Well, now I could write naked songs.
But I
want to say that this is all Bob's idea. He told me that night with Richard, he told me his whole idea of starting with gratuitous nudity and ending. And I knew it was a great idea. And I was very happy, Bob, when you like my songs.
David, let me ask you, because you had been naked on stage. Was it a show that you were interested in actually appearing in? Because I don't think you ever did it in the company.
I know I never did. The only time I ever got close, I don't know, I just never thought about it, but the only time I ever got close was when they were doing the film of it. They asked me to audition. And
audition?
To audition. Well, but I ended up, I said, sure, but I knew that they were going to go younger than me, and indeed they did. So, but it was fun, but I've been naked on stage many times. You know my whole thing about nudity. I am like grow up, America, get your dicks out. So just having done the naked play party kind of made me go like, okay, I'm on a little trajectory here, and I'm going to continue on. And it moved into writing, and I continue to write and videos, etc. So it's kind of been a mission. Like for Bob, it started out as a mission in a way as well. Same thing here.
I should add just a little plug for you is that you actually sang. Was it Perky Little Porn Star in your show Musical Theater Whore?
Yeah, no, Perky Little Porn Star is actually in my first show, To Bitter and Back.
That's right.
Yeah, and then there's a little bit of Naked Maid in my new show that's going to be the film coming up.
Okay, and people can look for Musical Theater Whore coming out next month, I think.
Yeah, musical comedy horror.
Sorry.
Musical comedy horror. That's okay. It's the film version of my one-man show, and it's coming out September 1st on DVD streaming. Amazon and iTunes, Google Play, a bunch of things. So,
and we will link to it on this show after people watch. It will be there. Now,
Billy, can I say something?
Yeah, of course. Try and stop you.
I was thinking of funny things that happened along the way. And I wanted to just say there's two things that I remember about Naked Boys Singing. Okay. And one of them is we opened Naked Boys Singing in the winter. And
yes, I remember.
Cement floor. Okay? Naked Boys, winter cement floor, shrinkage. I got very familiar with so, there was a lot of blow dryers in the back. And sometimes the guys would get a little too frisky. But the other thing that I thought was so interesting is Bob and I produced the album of Naked Boys Singing. And we went in the studio. Naked Boys Singing was a gigantic hit, which we have to mention. It was the most blessed show I've ever been in. From the minute it opened, it was a smash. And so we went in and did the CD, and it was at Tom Greep's studio, and we brought the guys in, and the guys started singing, and they weren't sounding very good. And we suddenly realized it was because they were wearing their clothes.
So it's always a killer.
Do you remember this, Bob? We had them take off all their clothes in the studio, and they sang great. Naked, they were great. Yeah.
Well, they've done their best work naked.
Yeah.
So now what I want to do is I want to see, all right, the key to any show, as far as I'm concerned, is getting the word out. And so a key player to this, and a key player, frankly, in my life and in every success I've had, was your publicist, who became one of my dearest friends, the wise and powerful Ken Werther is here. Hello, Ken.
Hey, Kenny.
Hi, Kenny.
Buddy, how are you all?
Oh, great. Good to see you.
I remember, well, first, let me just say personally, I remember Ken telling me, you've got to be at this show. I was at the opening night. He's like, you're going to want to write about this. And indeed I did. And I became very close to most of the cast, most of you. But I'm going to ask Ken, what was it like when you had to market something like this? Because this was somewhat uncharted territory.
It was. I remember quite vividly that Bob and I really didn't know what we had. We thought we had a hit, but we weren't really sure because it was somewhat uncharted territory. And, Bob and I very clearly remember Morticians in Love. And, and we very often talked about how fickle the gay audience, theater going audience was. And they would very often give me a lot of gas about, well, we don't need nudity to appreciate theater and blah, blah, blah. But of course, they would come running to the theater and, fight for the seats in the front row, although it wasn't that difficult because there were only 2 rows. And I did spend a good amount of time sort of not arguing with press people, but having to cajole them a bit. I remember you were, I think, wasn't that how you and I met?
I think it was the first thing I went to. Yep. I think that's where we met. Yep.
You and Eddie Shapiro.
And Jeffrey, I think.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein.
And so like you keep saying, I made lifelong friends. I mean, Brian Beacock, who will be joining you. I did not know him when the show began.
Wow.
And we've been friends ever since. We keep, looking at ourselves and each other and the calendar and asking, how the hell did this happen?
I know. But I'm curious, did you have newspapers that refused to come and see it or refused to advertise it or any kind of pushback like that?
No, we actually didn't. The only difficulty I had was with individual writers. No editors or higher ups said, the thing that really sent the show into the stratosphere was the Los Angeles Times review.
Yeah.
The last line of that review, which I remember all these years later, was, "This is choice fare, even if they had all their clothes on."
Wow.
And that did it.
Yeah.
Bob and I, we used to joke that we were glad we weren't the ones taking the ticket orders because things really. And I had been working with Bob at Celebration when this all, I guess we had already been working together for almost 5 years, Bob. Is that right? We did a lot of shows. And and also I should point out that when Bob first told me about Naked Lucy,
probably,
I thought he was kidding. I did. I initially thought he was joking. And then the first song that I ever heard, he invited me over to his home and he played The Bliss of a Briss for me.
Marie Caley.
Yep. And I thought, and I sat there and I listened to it and I thought, oh my God. And then, I was like, oh, he's not kidding. And
just because you brought that up, I will just say our good friend Karen Salkin just wrote, "I was there on opening night, one of only 3 females there. As Kenny knows, I'm still traumatized by the breast scene." So Karen, thank you. Karen is always interactive. Oh, I think we've lost Schrock. Well, he'll come back. Or he won't. Let's talk about him. No.
Well, we should just point out where he is. The man is talking.
He's in Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah, Puerto Vallarta. He was one of the smart ones that the minute Trump was elected in 2016, he and his husband packed up and moved out. I was always very impressed by that because, you got to have the strength of your convinctions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kenny, tell them about the Mark and Brian show because that was another bit of good luck.
That was the best. Mark's story about the getting the guys naked in the recording studio is, absolutely true and unforgettable. But what was even more incredible was the boys were invited to appear on the Mark and Brian radio show, which at that time was like the biggest morning show in Los Angeles. And I remember having a conversation with the producer of the radio show from my car on my way home from Palm Springs in a torrential downpour. So I'm driving on the freeway. I'm trying to pay attention, and the producer says to me, "Now here's the thing. I know it's radio, but I think the thing that would make it really fantastic is if the boys did the interview naked." And I can't take credit, obviously, for being that clever. I forget the guy's name, but he was right on the mark. That interview, they were on the air for almost an hour, and they took phone calls. People were calling in. I think Todd Macovsky, one of the cast members, someone he had gone to high school with.
Oh God!
Called in and surprised him, and the look on his face, he was like, "Oh my God, who is that again?"
Well, I think people have to realize how popular and mainstream that was.
Well, that's true. That's true, and I guess mostly to Mark's point is that when I first told the cast about the interview, they were very excited. Everybody wanted to be on the Mark O'Brien show. However, you should have seen the look on their faces when I told them that they had to get naked. And I remember we were in a sort of a holding room across the hall from the studio where everybody had a bagel and coffee and took their clothes off and sort of marched across the street, across the hallway. Naked. Here came this line of 9 naked guys walking across the. I look back on it and I think, why didn't I take pictures? And then I realized, well, we really couldn't take pictures, and also, who had phones?
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Wasn't like that then.
I want to start talking to some of the cast members, so I'm gonna let's see, David and Mark, I'm going to take out for a moment. Mark, don't worry. You're all going to be backstage.
Oh, okay.
Keep watching. You're not going anywhere. Get out of here. Okay. But the two of you I need there. So I'm going to start with, since we've talked about, I'm going to start with Brian Beacock. Hey, Brian.
Hello there. Hey, Bob. Hey, Kitty.
How are you, sweetheart? It's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
Well, it's been a long time since anyone have got to see anyone in person. But we've talked about you doing the show. So let's talk about your audition. How did you hear about the show?
I'm not sure. Bob can confirm, but it might have been in Backstage or Backstage West or something like that. I can't remember necessarily. But we had to get naked for the audition after we sang.
Oh, okay.
And
because if you were a terrible singer, why bother?
Well, exactly right. And I had recently gone through a breakup. And so I had been doing nothing but working at Universal Studios in the Beetlejuice Graveyard Rock and Review and going to the gym. Like, my body fat was like, 4.8%, whatever. And so I was ready to do this show. It was kind of like Body by Dumped. And I'm just gonna,
it's funny. We I just want to piggyback onto that. Is that when we had Jerry Mitchell on and we were talking about starting Broadway Bears, he had just been dumped, and they said when he was asked to be in Will Rogers Follies and naked on a drum, he's like, "I am never going to be in this good shape. I am happy to." So I think there is some sort of correlation between getting dumped and being a hit naked on stage.
Yeah, and also a point in LA where I'm like, I just don't care anymore. You know what I mean? Like, what's it gonna hurt? And it sounded.
How old were you?
Oh gosh, I was either 23.
Oh wow, you
24 maybe. I don't know. Who knows?
You were not. You were 30
in 98, Brian.
29
22 years ago.
Oh, 17. I was 17.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, round either way you want. Round up.
But I wasn't really nervous, and looking back, I had every right to be, but I just wasn't. I was more concerned, I think, as any musical theater actor is, I was more concerned about performing well and singing well. And the getting naked part, it just didn't bother me. And that lasted through the whole course of the run, with the exception of like, oh, mom's in the audience, you know, kind of situations. But for the most part, for me, it was never about the nudity as far as being nervous. It was just, am I going to be able to hit the high E flat tonight? Or how's the dancing going to go? Or we have a new piano player tonight. How's that's going to be? Like,
do you remember your audition?
I think I sang What About Today from Starting Here, Starting Now.
Okay.
And I may have sang I'll Know from Guys and Dolls. Those were kind of like what I did back in the day. So,
yeah. And what songs did you end up with in the show?
I really lucked out. I lucked out. I mean, I got The Naked Maid, which is one of my favorites.
There he is.
Yeah, I mean, David Pevsner, for goodness sakes, Naked Maid is so fabulous. But I have to tell you, one of my most favorite songs to perform was Fight the Urge, because it was so fast and the lyrics were really biting and the harmonies were crunchy and it was a really cool scene. And I loved that number. And I loved Window to Window as well. That was a nice little solo, you know, dreamy solo, but I kind of lucked out with my track. I just had the gamut of all kinds of emotional, funny. It was a really, really great experience and didn't hurt my career at all. Every single casting director in Los Angeles came to see this show. I don't think I had as many auditions beforehand as I did after. It was really good for actors, which you wouldn't think it would be.
How long did you stay in the show?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, I'm terrible with time and all that stuff. It could have been a year.
Well, you know, you were
17. Sure. I was 17 years old. I didn't have my driver's license yet.
So that's a good 40 years ago, 50?
Yeah. It was a long time. And then I stayed on a little while afterwards to help put new people into the cast.
All right.
Oh.
Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah. And then I was supposed to go to New York with the show. And I got my first voiceover job.
And I should point out that you've done very well with voiceover.
Yeah, 30 years of voiceover. Starting from that job, it was Digimon. And it was a tough choice to make. And I stayed in LA to do the cartoon. And it was a good choice, but I still don't have that Broadway credit.
Yeah,
and so
of course.
I regret that. But it was an amazing, definitely life-changing experience.
Cool. We're going to go to our next actor. Stay there. You're going to be backstage, but I'll bring you back in. Next, since, you know, he's sitting right next to him, the great Todd Macovsky. Hey, Todd.
Hey, Billy.
And I have to bring Ken Werther because, you know, besties and stuff. So, yeah, well, the other way, it's sort of, I know. We're still figuring this out.
I will never get it right.
No, I know, but that's all right. Who cares? Nobody's watching. Well, there's a lot of people watching. Hi, everyone, by the way. There's a lot of people watching. Oh, and Kevin McCann says, hello to Billy and Kenny. So, hello. The original press secretary from New York. So there you go. Brian, you might be able to get a job out of this in New York. So Todd, let's talk about your audition. How did you hear about the show?
So my very good friend, John Altieri, rest in peace, was cast in the show, and he kind of at the last minute decided that it wasn't for him, but he told the casting director, Greg Smith, rest in peace, that he knew somebody who might be interested in it. So that's how I heard about it. And I went in, I think it was on a Saturday, backstage in the dressing room. I sang my song.
What'd you sing?
Oh, God, great question. I can't. Not a clue.
What was your go-to audition song back then?
Oh, God. So that was 22 years ago.
Yeah. So you were also 17, 18.
I was 16. Yeah.
Oh, wow. You were younger than Brian. So I was the only one in his 30s, apparently. That's fine. It's fine.
But I sang my song, and then they gave me a robe and said, go into the dressing room, take off your clothes, put on the robe, and when you're ready, drop the robe. And
let me, Bob, was that how the auditions went? That they sang first, then
Absolutely.
they went back? Now, if you heard the voice and said, there's no chance, would you bother with the robe? Did you
No.
No. What if the voice wasn't?
I didn't want to waste their time. I didn't want to. I'm sorry.
No, but what if the voice wasn't so good, but you really thought they were hot?
The voice came first.
Really?
Absolutely, right. Absolutely. And then if we couldn't find a good voice, actually, I recently directed the show again, and I only had 9 people audition for 6 roles, and so it was a tough choice. And so then I made the decision. There were two candidates, and neither one of them could sing great, but one of them looked better than the other one, and I went for the looks. Yeah.
Let me ask you, actually, that brings up a really good question. And we'll talk about how the cast number changed eventually. But when you did the open auditions, was there a lot of people initially? Was it hard to get people? Was it easy?
It was hard to get people. It was hard. Greg Smith, as Todd said, rest in peace, Greg. We lost him recently. But he was brilliant, and he worked his ass off getting people, and like Todd said, John Altieri, dropped out. Another Joe Simon dropped out. A lot of people were wanting to do it, actually, but their boyfriends talked them out of it. That happened quite a lot.
Was there the pushback that either it was a gay theater or it was nudity? What was aside from the boyfriend issue, were there other industry constraints?
Not at all. No.
Okay.
No, I went for it very honestly and very openly. And so there wasn't any reason for any any flack or anything like that. And like Kenny said, that LA Times review, Kathy Foley's review, just sent it. I'll love her forever.
And did it become, because of those reviews, did it become easier to find replacements as the show went on?
It did, yeah, it did. As the show became known and it was a hit, so people wanted to be. And you know what I found, Billy, over the years?
What?
A lot of people want to be naked.
Wow.
And so we were auditioning in San Francisco, and we had the naked part. And we said, okay, you can put your clothes on. And one of the guys says, well, do we have to?
Hey.
So it's been an interesting journey.
Kenny, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to. I just wanted to say that I actually, when I talked about the LA Times review, yes. I mixed up the quote.
God.
I know. Again, listen, I'm old. What can I tell you?
Well, you weren't 17 then.
No. When it all began, I was already 22. It was.
Oh well.
But what the last line of that review, I said. Well, I'll just tell you what it actually said. It said, "This is choice fare, regardless of your sexual orientation."
Wow.
And that's what.
Right.
That's what did it. The other line that I quoted came from the review in Backstage.
Okay.
Which the last line of that review was, "I would gladly go back tomorrow and see it again, even if they all had their clothes on." So
well, I can't remember how many times I saw it over the years, because every time new cast members would come in, Kenny was really good about saying, you've got to come back and see this person, whether you write about, and again, that was the other thing. There was no pressure. It was like, whether you write about it or not, I think you should see this person.
Right. Well, Bob and I had a philosophy all through the years that we worked together that regardless of what a so-called press person or media personality or writer like yourself was going to do, that it was worth having them see the work of the theater. Whatever we were doing, And I learned that philosophy from the dear departed Nancy Hereford at the March.
Oh, sure, of course.
Who, you know, I always used to say to her, "Why are we letting that slug in?" And she'd say, everybody needs to know about the work at the Mark Taper Forum, and whether they write about it or not, I think we shouldn't say no. And so,
if only they were still saying that to me.
If only they were still saying that to anybody,
well, that's true.
I still sometimes argue, and I use the word argue respectfully, with producers about who to comp and who not to comp. But now more than ever, my philosophy is, if they want to come see the show and they have a blog or whatever it is, and if 10 more people are going to find out about it,
right,
it's 10 more people than would have. And trying to keep somebody out of the theater is sort of counter to what I'm supposed to be doing. So.
Well, we should say that this was really the time when the internet was kind of beginning. I mean, you did look down on somebody if they weren't in print. I was in print, so that wasn't an issue. I don't think you did, but I think but it has changed to the point that now, if you're in print, they're like, yeah, but how many followers do you have on Twitter? And I'm like, go fuck yourself. Which may also be why I've been turned down.
No, but your point is well taken. It changed. It completely flipped. I would argue with producers. They would say, yeah, but they're just online. Who's seen?
Yep. Oh, we heard it before. And by the way, we just got a comment you will appreciate from Eddie Shapiro. I was so often that slug. Thanks, Kenny.
I love you, Eddie. I love you, love you.
Oh, again, this is our family. Todd, what songs did you have in the show? We'll get back to Todd.
I was so lucky. I had Marie Kane's song, The Bliss of a Briss, which is the best show written ever.
And traumatized poor Karen Salkin. Sorry,
yeah,
Karen.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah, right.
Traumatized every now and then. But and then I did with Brian Beacock and Chris Gilbert, wherever he may be, Fight the Urge, written by David Pevsner and Raimi. And then I had a little part in Nothing But the Radio On. I sang backup.
Right. And the harmonies in that were so beautiful.
So great, right?
Yeah, really.
And then I had a little bit part in Perky Little Porn Star.
You did?
I did. I was the clapper guy, and
yes.
That was my favorite part, because on the clapper I used to write every night a different parody, like a dirty parody of my favorite one is Armageddon Off.
I don't know how I missed that. I never.
It's very subtle. It was really for me.
I'm seeing now. Oh, we don't have any other performers haven't shown us. Where the hell's Trance? He was supposed to be here.
Yeah, where the hell is Trance?
And Haboosh might join us eventually. But okay, anyway, thank you, Todd. You'll go backstage. We'll get back to you. Take something off if you feel like it.
No.
So now at this point, you've got a cast. And Bob, you were the director of the show, right?
Yes. Where am I? There I am.
You're right there.
Yes.
And so now, were there any, because that was a very strange space, there was that poll issue, and it was this sort of right angle situation. So were there issues in terms of staging the show, especially with all that nudity?
No, not really. That poll I had gotten used to. I'd produced 40 shows there, and so we made the best use of the poll that we ever could.
Kenny often had me sitting by the pole. He's like, look,
that was the problem with the poll, is if you got the seat behind the pole, you weren't really happy. That was the worst seat. Yeah. But I wanted to say with Kenny, when we first opened, like the first preview, I was petrified, and I think you were too. I said, "Oh my God, what have we done?" You know, because the people who came were on oxygen, and walkers. You know, and I thought, "Holy shit, what have we
That
done?"
was the Celebration Theater.
It's true. Bob is so right. I actually forgot about that. I talked about opening night, but the very first preview,
yeah,
I will never forget how pale you were, Bob. You literally were, like, I mean, so much was, all joking aside, everything was riding on the show.
Yeah, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And we really, really did not know what we had.
No.
It was all a question until that first audience actually, and it's true, they were, I don't know that we should make too much fun of people on oxygen, because I feel like I'm a little too close.
But on the positive side, I'm sure they're all dead.
Well, again, that's right. We can talk about them because they've got to be dead. But they were a great audience, and they loved it.
Yeah.
And Bob and I kept turning and looking at each other like.
Yeah, but the actors, I think the performers were the ones who were most surprised. Because they rehearsed, separately, and so they didn't see the whole thing together until we started doing run-throughs. And so, and also we rehearsed naked as much as we could too. So at least that wasn't an issue for them. But they were real surprised when they saw it all put together and knew, oh shit, there's a show here. Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about direction, another big part of the show is there is a lot of dancing, and we have choreographer Travis Payne is here. Hey, Travis.
Hi guys,
Travis,
how are you?
Oh my God.
I know. What?
It has been a while. So,
It's been a while.
how did you get involved with the show?
I remember, if this is 97,
Right.
I think 98. Was it 98, Bob?
Well, I conceived of it. It took me a year to put it together.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so, that was in 97.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I remember just completing Michael Jackson's history tour as a choreographer and dancer.
Well, it's the next logical step.
Well, what it was an opportunity to work in Los Angeles, in the theater arena, and I remember the Celebration Theater. I lived not far from it at the time, and was introduced to Bob and found myself working on this production with some of my friends, Vincent Zamora, Kevin Stay, some of the guys. And we were just doing this cool musical, and the guys happened to be naked. And it was really, really great. And listening to the beginning part of this broadcast, first of all, thank you for asking me, Billy.
Of course.
It just brought back a lot of those memories, and just sort of being able to sort of create and be in the space, and and go on this journey, that I would take a lot of great memories from.
It's interesting. You mentioned you would, I think that everybody involved was at different stages of their career. A lot of people were starting out. A lot of people were seasoned professionals. You're at this point where you're doing things at this high international level. What makes you say, I'm going to go to how many seats, Bob?
Well, there were 65.
Okay, let's say that's what it was, but we know it was more a lot of times. But, okay, so then you say, I'm going to go from Michael Jackson to this little 65-seat theater. What did you have apprehension about doing that?
No, all of it made sense, and it was another experience. They're all not going to be the same. But what working with Bob and the team at the Celebration Theater for Naked Voice Singing was for me was one step closer to Broadway, which I had not done and always wanted to do. So that was part of my decision making in joining the team so early on.
And we've talked about the setup of the stage and the pole. How did you have to, was that an issue in terms of working around it, or did it actually force you to be more creative?
No, it was fine. I think that the pole wasn't even the pole, because of the environment, the pole didn't seem out of place. It was just a pole. We were in, we were in a theater that, was rough around the edges and it was funky and it was gritty, but that was the vibe,
Right.
So I think the space actually played a part in the show because it was disarming. It wasn't like you were going into these, velvet seats and all that. It wasn't that. It was down and dirty. It was fun. It was irreverent. It was,
and sort of underground, a little subversive.
It all worked. So the pole wasn't even an issue for us.
And what I loved about the choreography, now that I'm looking back, is that you really used every corner of that space because it was a big square. You had the audience at different sort of vantage points, and yet it was not, I don't think you ever really missed anything because everything was utilized.
Of course. And then being in a black box, you know what I mean?
Right.
When you take away all that information, it doesn't feel small. It just, you get enveloped in the experience. And that's what we did. It was like, it was theater. It was theater. So theater happens in all sort of ranges. And that was just what was that was just the first incarnation.
Right. And also, I guess you're building it from the ground up. You have nothing to compare it to.
Of course. Other than like Hair, productions that I'd heard about, that had me. And I actually got to go on and, create productions of, and then it just was okay. I mean, as a dancer, being a dancer, growing up as a dancer, nudity was never an issue, so we always had quick changes. We always had that. And the body, the form was just the instrument that we worked with. Here, it was just easier to correct the lines because there were no clothes.
I'm obviously thinking of Window to Window, which was really a set dance piece. But were there other things? You're working with performers who aren't necessarily trained dancers. So, is that good in a situation like this that you can kind of keep it natural?
Yes, and I call that pedestrian. It ranges, from callous to pedestrian, and so when you look at I think this is true of any project. When you look at the cast, you create for their strengths, and they were men, so there was a certain sort of rugged athleticism that was just there anyway. It wasn't about a lot of grace, to me, it was about the fantasy first of all, and they were all different, and they were all so individual. So it was about really kind of enhancing what they do already, not necessarily for me trying to change anybody, because I thought it was cool that they were guys
and play to their strengths.
Correct.
Bob, was the pas de deux always a part of Window to Window, or did you think to yourself, oh my God, we've got dancers, we are singing about it, let's also show it through dance? Let's see.
No.
Go ahead.
That was part of the original concept that I had for the number, because I wanted a ballet. I wanted to see two naked men embracing and all but making love with each other. I say it's not a sexual show, but there certainly were those sexual moments. But I wanted to see the two male forms, the naked forms, and I wanted to have that kind of a serious dance in the show that give it that more variety. And unfortunately, we haven't kept the that little ballet in it because we never have dances like that, and we don't have Travis Payne with us to do it. So, it's it was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing. It was beautiful. I loved it. Yeah.
Travis, were there moments in the show that were your favorites? I mean, it's always hard to choose favorites, but
the thing was, Bliss. The Briss was a deal. I remember that being a deal because up until that point, I didn't know what a Briss was.
Oh,
I'm from Atlanta, Southwest Atlanta.
Can I interject something here?
Of course.
Marie Kane, who wrote Bliss of a Briss, is a female Gentile. So she knows, it's just her experience that song came out of, and it's just amazing that a female Gentile wrote that song.
Yeah,
a female Gentile, and again, a Jewish, non-Jew choreographing it as well. And look,
exactly.
Didn't we have a table or something, Bob?
Yes, we had a rolling table
around. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my God! All right.
That table
that was actually one of the tables. I'm sorry, that was one of the tables from Morticians in Love. One of those slab tables.
Yeah. I just remember it was zany. I mean, it gave me, like, I grew up loving, Rocky Horror, and this was culty like that. I got that from onset, and it was like, oh, you can just be cheeky and like really go there. Okay, great. So for a creative like me, that was just a canvas, and then knowing some of the dancers anyway, and everybody was so welcoming. It was lovely.
Yeah, I remember it being, I don't want to say prop heavy, but there were a lot of sight gags and a lot of props that were used.
And a lot of costumes. Nobody realizes how many costumes are in that show.
Well, there were a lot of costumes. And in Bliss of the Briss, you had a Jew, you had a mother.
Yeah. And we had a diver.
I don't remember that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. There was a lot, but it was so much fun. It was so much fun. I mean, I have fond memories. I wish we could have stayed in contact,
you became a star, so
we had our paths, but I've always rooted for the show, and the being like, Broadway, or there's a DVD, always rooting for it, a little bittersweet because I wish I'd been there, but happy to have participated in its legacy.
Oh, me too.
Since we're talking about the DVD, let's talk about that. The film was made, Bob, and that was, what was that, 2007? Yeah, I guess. I think it came out in 7.
I think it came out in 7.
Were you happy with that?
Not entirely.
Okay.
I think that the director didn't know the pace of the show. He had never seen it, and so the pace was very important to me. It just had to move. I didn't want to have people time to think, and so and he didn't get that. And so he interrupted every song he put the sheet music, a copy of the sheet music on it. So every number stopped. But a lot of the cast was fantastic. Like Travis mentioned, Kevin Spey. There was a lot of really good stuff in the movie that I'm proud of, but I have a hard time watching it.
Yeah, I have not seen it since it
I'm very
out.
happy that it's on film. It's great.
Yeah, I guess Kenny,
it was hard.
Since you were so close to it, Ken, what do you think?
Yeah. No, it was interesting.
Let me ask Ken. Kenny?
Kenny?
I agree with Bob. I think that there are parts of it that are immensely entertaining, and there are parts of it that I should say I haven't seen, like you, Billy. I haven't seen it for years. But I remember. I think basically what Bob is saying. I remember when I first watched it, my thought was, this is not our show.
Exactly.
This is not. If you'd never seen it in a theater, and you saw the movie, it was funny and touching and entertaining. A little bit confusing. I think the director had some strange ideas about how to put the bigger world into the so-called story.
Sure.
But by and large, I mean, I have to admit, I don't go around recommending it to people, because it's not, again, I don't feel that it's, and I only say this because I know that Bob, wasn't completely happy. I don't think it's a great representation of the magic that was created on stage. But I, like Bob, am glad that it was committed to film because it will live long past any of us.
Well, and it's an entirely different animal. And I think Travis kind of talked about that, is that, if you're doing something in a big arena versus in a small theater, you can't compare them. They're their own thing, whatever they are.
That's true.
And I think, Travis, have you had this situation where you've had to completely reconceive a show for a different either media or venue?
Oh yeah.
And you have to kind of throw out what you think the show's going to be, because the show is going to be different wherever it is.
Correct. I mean, there's tweaks, there's changes, there's versions, there's front facing, there's in the round, then there's complete repurposing, which for me was in 2009 with This Is It. I mean, we thought we were going in the O2, and it wound up not being that. And fortunately, Michael Jackson's such an icon that the documentary soon followed, and then 2 Cirque du Soleil shows. Yeah, and those things. So when you talk about surprises and changes, that's kind of the most epic one I've had in my career. But also to that point, Michael would say, if things weren't filmed, how are future generations going to appreciate them? So film was definitely very, very important medium to us, for sure. And I've got to say, earlier you asked how did I get here. I know Greg Smith had something to do with that. So rest his soul. He was a dear, dear friend, very close. He and Kenny Ortega, and I'm sure Greg, because throughout my career, on so many projects, Greg was at the helm of helping secure the talent, identify and secure the talent. But and I mean, the whole range.
I should mention Kenny Ortega as well, who put me in touch with you. So thank you to Kenny. And there were also, I guess, all of us. Bob, I guess we should also mention that there were other people involved in the show, even if their work didn't make it to the final project, like our good friend Bruce Valanche was involved when it was going to be a little bit more bookish. Is that right? There's a delay.
No, Bob is muted right now.
Oh, he's muted. Hold on. Let's see if I can do it on my end. Okay, Bob, hold on. You're muted. Let's see if I can unmute you.
Travis.
Yeah, I just see the little.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Okay.
Now he's frozen. Oh, there you are, Bob. Go ahead.
It says I'm unmuted now. So.
Thank you, Travis.
Okay, here I am.
My pleasure.
What was Bruce's involvement?
Well, what was
Bruce Valanche?
Travis, what were you saying? I'm sorry. All this.
No, Billy was mentioning about some unsung heroes who may have been in the beginning.
I had him come in and do some. I wanted. Right, Bruce Valanche.
Right.
And I had him come in and do like crossovers. I just wanted a little dialogue between songs to sort of tie it together. But they were just crossover jokes, and they fell flat. We tried them with maybe 2 performances, and they just they interrupted the show, and so we scrapped them. But Bruce still gets credit for it. I think a little percentage too.
Oh, well, I think that it's something that we've kind of talked about. Travis brought it up, but that, sometimes what you think a show is going to be isn't what it ends up being. A show is going to turn into what it is supposed to be. And the people involved in the venue and the timing, things change. And to Bob's credit, the fact that you were adaptable and sort of able to pivot the show when it wanted to go a certain way is what made it the success it is.
Yeah, and it's because of the material. The material is so strong. again, the material overrides some of the not perfect singing because the material is so strong, and so it's easy to work with it, to rearrange it. I've added a couple of songs recently, and it's a very flexible show. It's really easy, and it's been translated into lots of languages. And I've seen some productions that are kind of amazing how that they've adapted to what.
Well, actually, Bob, let's talk about that, because the show was originally a 2-act show. First time I saw the 1-act version, I want to say it was Provincetown, but I may be mistaken.
It might have been.
And it went from a 9-person 2-act show to a 6-person 1-act show.
Right.
Which, I mean, first off, did different venues ask for it to be adapted into
in Provincetown especially, all the acts are 55 minutes long.
Yes.
And the venues have 5 minutes to change from one act to the other, because that's how Provincetown works. And so we had to cut it down to 55 minutes and 1 act. And
how hard was that for you? I mean, losing a lot of material.
It was fun. It was still fun to do. I've always had a good time doing the show. I've never gotten tired of it. I've seen it 100,000 times, and I've never gotten tired. It's always fun to work on.
I'm going to bring everybody in. So hold on, everybody, you're coming back. Brian and Todd and
Travis.
Okay. Well, if anybody else shows up, I don't know if I have room for you. I mean, I'll squeeze you in.
We're all very thin. They'll fit.
Billy, can I say something?
Of course. Yes.
There's one person that passed away that I think we should mention, and that's Stephen Bates.
Absolutely.
And Bob did all your wonderful songs with him, and he was quite a force. Maybe Bob, you want to talk to him about it a minute?
Well, I brought Stephen in fairly early on. Well, I brought Stephen in while we were casting, I believe, and so he helped with the casting, and then he was very instrumental on working on the songs, working with the actors, and on putting the show together. He had a lot of input with me, putting it together. He was on, pretty much from the beginning, and invaluable. It was really invaluable.
Wow.
And a lot of fun.
Billy?
Yes, honey.
My husband and I had the cast party. Does anybody remember you came up to my house in the hills?
Yes.
All of these boys were beautiful. They're still beautiful, but they were beautiful. There were 17 of you. We're 22.
Well, exactly.
We had all this great food, Billy, and nobody ate anything.
Well, not for nothing. I mean, so since Mark is coming naked. Oh, well, there you go. So, I would have come had anyone invited me. Anyway, I was behind the pole. Anyway, we've got some photos from the original cast. But so here's one of the first press pictures, because I remember Kenny sending me these.
Wow.
And now we've lost somebody. Oh, we lose Schrock again. Schrock. Well, it's Mexico, for God's sake.
He's in Mexico.
Yeah, right, exactly. Pedal faster. Anyway, here he comes. All right, we got to stop talking about it. Okay, here he is. And then we've got the fluff the pillows. Then we've got the CD cover.
Oh my God!
Right.
And we should mention Stephen Gideon as well, right?
Oh yeah,
Stephen Gideon.
Yeah.
By Tom Bianchi.
Yeah, that was a Tom Bianchi photo. Yeah.
Wow.
I tried to get as many stars involved as I could. And that's, why I went to Kenny Ortega. Greg Smith, brought Kenny in. And, I wanted it to have cred, It had to have credibility. And so I brought in, who I could. Tom Bianchi, I thought, he's a star, but he didn't take very good pictures.
Well, I remember
we weren't able to use them.
First,
we couldn't use them.
That first photo shoot, Tom Bianchi, who's used to photographing beautiful men with 8-pack.
Right.
He told us all, suck it in. And we're like, we are.
You are. Well, I mean, now, there are so many pictures here. Let's see. That's a good-looking group.
Oh, my God.
These are so cute. Does anyone remember anything about this?
Yes. I do.
Okay.
Gay Pride Parade.
Yes.
And we were wearing end-to-end because they sponsored us.
And I think we have a photo with the the N10 logo. Where the hell is it? You know, the eyes aren't what they used to be. This, I think, no, is it that? Yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay.
Oh, God, I haven't seen that.
Yep, there's a lot.
Cool.
I love this one as well. Look at everybody.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Oh, my God, I forgot about some of these people.
Yeah, well, exactly. You and me both.
God.
Oh, so let's ask this. Did anybody in the original cast sleep with each other?
Not that I know of.
Not that I know of.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
But we used to make a joke about how we were going to have a switchboard developed where the audience could call in and they would hear a message that said, you have reached Naked Boys Singing. If you would like to date Todd Macovsky, press 1. If you would like to date Brian Beacock, press 2. Because there was a lot of that, guys hanging, not the older, well, yeah, the older guys too, I guess.
Well, I remember I've done plays with naked men, and there would be people lined up backstage to meet them, and a lot of either romances or tricking happened. Did Brian? Let's start with Brian. Brian, how was it for your sex life? Because you had come out of it single. You had gone into it single.
I stayed single.
Really?
But that's kind of me though too, because when I'm in a show, I'm in a show.
Right.
And that's
Todd. When you're in a show, are you in anything else? Gotta be quick here.
With that show, I actually did find a couple of dates.
Yeah, well, I know of at least one.
Yeah.
Oh God, I only have 2 of you here. Jesus God, well, you have to cover it for the whole cast. Okay, now what's this a picture? Look at this.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Where are we in this photo?
I think that's the opening night party.
Oh, wow.
Party.
Oh my God, Kenny, are you a pimp? Wow. What's happening? Kenny,
who is that guy?
I don't know.
Oh
Kenny looks
oh
like
wait, no, that's not opening night party. My hair's too short.
I think that was that looks like. Were we having some kind of a reunion or something?
I don't know.
know.
But Brian's got the flipping going on. Then we have a friend of this show, Miss Gloria Allred. Is that Gloria Allred?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh,
wow.
I'm loving these photos. Then of course we showed that one. Let's see what we got. That one we showed. Oh, we spoke of the Robert Mitchum.
Oh, look at that.
Where are the Robert Mitchum cutouts, Bob?
Oh, they wore out, you know.
I don't have any of them. I'd like one of them. I don't have any.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they just wore out. And then eventually I just started using fans with his face on because, you know, it was just too much.
And then, here's another big picture. Oh, wait, do we see this one? No.
Oh, Frank McCowan and Steve. Oh, my God.
Where is
Lori
this?
Mawkins.
Anyone know where this is?
It
Mark,
looks
from you. Do you remember, Mark?
I think this is the same party that nobody knows where it was.
Oh, okay. It's the unknown party.
You know, I think it was upstairs from
on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Benvenuto?
Santa Monica and San Vicente, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
I I had shown this picture when we talked about the recording session. So Brian, there you are recording.
Clothes on.
Well, he's got a tank top on.
Yeah, obviously I wasn't doing very well yet because I still have my clothes on.
See, you know, this is an outtake apparently. But speaking of Brian and his clothes, what I love about this next photo is that Brian's shirt is being held together by one button.
How young.
But yeah, well, that's 17 for you, you know.
Yeah, right. And now I'm like, turtlenecks.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we were all really young. So I found this clip from somebody talking about doing the show in Australia. And this is kind of a first for me, but I'm wondering if any of you have similar experiences. Take a look at this.
We went on for the first show and we kind of all schmooze on in our sexy way. And the stage in Newcastle is tiny. So as I schmoozed on, I was right in front of the first row. And as I got to the end of that section, a woman slid off her thong and ran her foot up my leg and pushed her toe in between my bum cheeks. I squealed and jumped. I did not know what to do. I freaked out, but I kind of couldn't really do anything, so I kind of just took a step away and just kind of kept going. But yeah, I've absolutely freaked out at that. But that's really been my own embarrassing thing for me. So.
Well, she was barking up the wrong leg. But did any of you have any audience?
If I may say, thank God for women in the audience because women are what kept the show going for years and years and years. And I didn't understand because I was kind of out of the loop. I lived in LA, and I did my one-man show to Bitter and Back in Chicago, and I was sharing the stage with Naked Boys Singing. So they were doing like an early evening show, and I would do mine. So the first time I got a sense that the audience has changed was I'm waiting outside the theater, and I'm hearing all this like high-pitched cackling and shrieking and stuff. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And then the doors open, and out come this like torrent of women and wearing tiaras and going like this and this and this and just yelling and screaming and laughing their asses off. And I went, oh my God, that's an amazing thing to cross over in that direction because that has kept that show running,
Right. I had heard in
22
New
years.
York. In New York, in particular, I know that there were a lot of bachelorette parties, Bob.
Absolutely, that's
Did that
what
happen in LA? I don't remember that happening in LA, but maybe you or Penny know. Oh, it did?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got a lot of women because of that Mark and Brian show. It was a drive time show, and all the secretaries were listening to it, and that sort of triggered the word of mouth, I think, to women, and made it was safe for women, and also
continue.
It was safe for the because it wasn't sexual, and they felt that they were being led on in secret. They love Fight the Urge because it's something that they sort of didn't know about. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I know
the women have. If it's an audience full of gay men, it's deadly. It's deadly.
Did you, Brian Brian? Let's start with you. Did you?
I'm really breaking up here.
It's all right. We can hear you, Brian. Did you find that there was a preferred audience?
As long as they friggin' laughed, I could care less what they were comprised of. But yeah, you definitely had a lot of people, and you always have this when people go to see shows anyway. The people that go starting with their hands crossed, like prove it to me.
Right. Gay men are the worst when it comes to
gay men are terrible.
Gay men are the worst.
Yeah, that's true.
But definitely, but then the bridal showers, if they had one too many drinks, they were also terrible.
Then you get a toe up the butt cheeks, apparently.
If you're lucky.
Did you have any audience mishaps that you recall, Todd?
Not really. My family came, and
well, that's a mishap.
Yeah. My mother actually, when we first opened, she said, "I don't think I want to see the show." I'm like, "I think you're right." And then we were on Mark and Brian, and she heard it, and she's like, "Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. Maybe I do want to see the show. So she came with my sister and my brother-in-law. And I asked Kenny, I said, please do not sit them in the front row. Please sit them in the back row, which is like the third row. And he did, thankfully. Well, she wore this bright white suit. So I'd look out and she was like this beacon. So I could not help looking at her. So that, I mean, if the cold in the audience, the cold in the theater didn't do it, then that certainly did. It was lots of leakage that night.
And I
will say, oh yeah, go ahead, David.
It's my favorite story about my mom. She had heard about the show and she was so supportive and came to see Party even though I was naked. And well, anyway, so she went to see. She said, "I really want to see Naked Boys when I'm in LA." I'm like, "Really?" It's so not her thing. She was kind of prudish, but she said, "Yes, I want to go." So I got tickets. I sent her to the show, and afterwards, I saw her afterwards, and I said, "So did you like the show?" And she goes, "Oh no." No.
I just remember.
Supported.
Well, I remember, and I will credit Kenny. Anytime I wanted to go, whether it was sold out or not, and I know this is probably terribly illegal, but the venue's gone. Is that there would be those two folding chairs you'd put by the exit door for me.
Right.
And that's where I very often was sitting right by the door, which was totally illegal, but
Yeah.
but whatever. And I remember, Todd, I met your mother when you did Marry Me a Little with Steve Gideon. Is that correct?
Oh, wow.
Could be.
I remember her from that.
Yeah. Or was it my solo cabaret show that I did at the venue? I know she was there.
Might have been there too.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I do know the 2 times you went on, I was there for both of those. So.
Thank you.
We've talked about songs that people liked. Was there a song you didn't like? I'm going to start with Kenny.
Uh-oh.
Oh, well, I'll actually start with me. I think the conversation I had with, I think it was Todd, but it may have been Brian, is I said, I don't like that song about the dog. And they said, what song about the dog? I said, and Rovers on Mars. Like, what's the dog? And they just laughed hysterically of saying, no, the space rover. I'm like, oh, I don't like that one either. I believe Schrock, was that Chris? Was that one of your songs?
Yeah.
Sorry,
song.
I didn't like the dog.
No, but I knew the rover was on Mars, and I thought, well, everybody else did too, but it was a dog.
Apparently,
it was a dog.
Sorry. Did that not make the cut to the 90-minute version, to the 1-act version, or is that still in the show?
Which one?
Chris.
No, that got out of the show at some
point. Well, there you go. Okay, good.
But
I'm sorry, you cutting up on me.
One of the things that's fun is that I wrote with Marie Kane. Marie Kane and I wrote different songs for different cities.
Yes, you sent me some of the lyrics. I was reading them.
I'm sorry, what?
You sent me some of the lyrics because I was reading for England, for Rio, I think.
Wow. In Texas, everything's bigger in Texas. Rockin' on the Rock in San Francisco. And it was fun I think Bob got us to write a special song for every time it played. We did about 6 of them.
Anyway, okay, so songs you didn't like. Kenny, was there a song you didn't, or that you said, oh, I can walk around during this?
Well, actually, I have a better story than one I didn't like. I liked a song that many people did not, and that was Trance's number, Stripped.
Oh, the original one, right.
I loved that number, and so many people that I spoke with would say that, well, they didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Well,
it was a narration of violence.
Right, exactly. It was about violence, and so people were kind of, they kind of looked at it a bit askance. But Trance was so good, and it was like the moment of the show that was actual drama. You know, it was a musical number like everything else. But I think that's one of the reasons the show was so successful and has been so successful is that the material actually, look at him. The material actually has substance. It wasn't just we used to joke that it wasn't just, even though that it was all about dicks, that it wasn't just a dick show.
Yeah.
Because and I think that's what surprised audiences when they came and they watched the show and they listened to that music. They were like, wow, these songs are really about something. So it's funny, Billy talked about, Chris, Look What You Missed. Interesting. I know that song was very personal to Bob. I think people didn't really understand that song either.
Oh.
Or not everybody. I shouldn't be saying.
Kenny, what happened is the show opened very much during the AIDS crisis. And as the time passed and the AIDS crisis wasn't as predominant in people's thoughts, Stripped and Chris, Look What You Missed didn't have as much impact. Mm-hmm. So 10 years later in New York, they were still doing Chris, Look What You Missed. Right. And I think the audience was getting it. So to me, that was it. And plus the other thing is the show overall was a generally lighthearted, fun show.
Right. As we said earlier, shows do become what they're going to become. And sometimes something that you love suffers.
Yeah.
Brian, was there anything you didn't love in the show?
It's not that I didn't love it, but the pas de deux was always a risky adventure. Because you were naked and hot and sweaty, and I had to do things like put my feet on the guy's knees and do backflips and stuff. Right. So you just never knew what you were going to get. I remember one night, I think Mark Smith was in the show as a replacement or whatever, and he had trimmed his chest. And there's a point where we're supposed to come together, and then I slide down. Well, he had just trimmed, so it was like.
If I recall correct, I remember you telling me, I think, that there was, at least with the cast, there was a lot of either spray tan. I don't know if it was spray tanning or just regular tanning that you had to tan a lot. Yeah. Yeah. There's an occupational hazard. Todd, anything that you either didn't love or stands out for you?
Can I take the fifth? No, come
on.
No, I didn't love Stripped, and I'm so glad that it was replaced for New York.
And The Entertainer, by the way, was a really good song.
Great song.
Great
song. And Trance killed it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And in the movie, Jason
It's
Curry
a great song.
Yeah, it's great. But I know, Mark, you were talking about fluffing backstage and about stuff like that. And they did keep that theater just brutally cold. And yeah, so we, I bought a penis pump,
right.
And I know, Brian, you had the hot hair dryer, and I think one time you got too close to your peen and burned it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Especially not in a pas de deux.
Yep. And they're like, places, Mr. Beacock.
Bob and I used to go backstage before the show, and the dressing room doors would be closed, and Bob would be, are you fluffing in there? What are you pumping in there? And I remember thinking, oh, whatever's going on back here is the show back here.
That's a show.
That's the show. I mean, we had stories that just hilarious. At one point, we had I don't know if substitute is the right word, stage manager. Mm-hmm. And our beloved Sean Farmer was, I don't know, on vacation or something. And this guy came in, nice guy, but during the second act, I think, Brian and I love this story. We talk about it all the time. Is that, Todd, I don't know if you remember this, that we were backstage, and all of a sudden, out the door in the hallway, we saw the stage manager go sort of strolling by the door, and it was almost like who's flying the plane?
Hey, do you remember?
You know,
I saw him. He was reading a book.
He was reading a book.
He's like,
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I'm like, who's calling the cues right now?
Do you remember? I can't remember her name. She was one of the later stage managers. She was wonderful. The fog machine was controlled from the booth, and so one time the tube disconnected from the machine, and so when she pushed the go button, all the fog came into the booth, and there she was, and the cast could see what was going on, but nobody else. And there she was in this booth full of fog.
And then Bob had gone off to New York to try to find the show a home, and I was sort of babysitting it for him. I used to joke, and the fog machine died.
Jesus.
And so, and it was kind of key because at the very beginning of the show, the boys were shrouded in fog, and as the lights came up, the fog dissipated, and there were all these penises looking at you. And so I suddenly was, the publicist. I was very busy pricing fog machines and so, and then the joke afterward, and we replaced it, and it turned out that the one that had been there was on loan. Bob had gotten it, and so he was upset because it was like, well, how can we return it to broken? And I was like, but we didn't break it; it's just not working. And so the joke for years after that, after everybody else was gone, was that fog machine was the Ken Werther Memorial Fog.
Bob, how long did the show run?
22 years?
No, not 22 years. At the Celebration Theater, the initial. Yeah.
I think it was about a year and a half.
No, longer, Bob.
I think it was longer. I think it was longer.
Years. Kenny?
Oh, really?
It was actually 19 months.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Okay. So that is a year and a half.
Toward the end of the run, wanting to keep the show alive, but having to face the fact that audiences were diminishing
and dead.
Right? Exactly. We did only 2 shows a week, and we do like Saturday night and Sunday afternoon. Mm-hmm. When we first opened, it was. Let's see. I think it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 8, and Sunday at 3 or something like that. Yeah. And we took off like a rocket, and there weren't enough seats. The demand was extraordinary, so we added Wednesday night. Remember that, you guys?
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then as time went on, and I think I had kind of a unique seat for all of this because. As time went on and everybody went off to do their thing, I was still the publicist for the theater.
Sure.
And I think I saw every single guy that performed in that show in Los Angeles. And by the time it was over, it was long before it was over, but at the end, it was a completely different group of guys. Right. And the show, it was still a great show, but it wasn't the same. And, to me, I'm kind of a baby like that. In my regular life, if I see an original cast and then I see a second cast, I can't seem to let the first cast go. Right. But this was harder for me because it should also, another fun little anecdote is Todd and I had been friends for like 10 or 11 years before this all happened.
Yeah, probably about
So you met him like when he was 8. All right.
Exactly. I used to feed him his porridge.
I don't need to know what you fed him. I don't need to know.
And at one point, I did not know that John Altieri had been cast. Mm-hmm. And I did not know that he had decided he didn't want to feel comfortable. Bob Bob and I used to talk on the phone. The years that we worked together, we used to talk on the phone 2 or 3 times a day, every single day. And one time, Bob said to me, "Oh, I've got one guy. I got to audition because somebody dropped out." I said, "Oh, I said, "Oh, really? Who?" And he said, "A guy named Todd Macovsky." And I was like, I remember saying, "Bob, save yourself the time. Just hire him because you're going to see. You're going to." And he said, "Well, I have to audition." I said, "I know, but trust me on this. You're going to hire him." And
who stayed with the show the longest in terms of cast members? Does anyone know?
Trance.
Trance, yeah.
No idea.
I think Trance.
I think
Yeah.
I want to say something to you guys. The original LA cast of Naked Boys Singing were fantastic.
Yes.
Todd, Brian, Steve,
Everybody.
Trance. They really, I've seen so many other casts, and some of them have been great, but you guys, nobody could beat you guys. You were great.
No, never.
Let's talk about the CD. So the CD is the original cast.
Right.
What was that like recording, Todd?
Well, go on.
It just so happened that I was deathly ill the weekend that we, and you can hear it on the CD. I'm so congested, but what a thrill! It was great, and I love the studio. I love Tom Creep and Evelyn, and it was great. It was my first recording of an original cast album ever, so it was very special to me.
Brian, what about you? We've obviously seen the photo of you doing it.
Well, first of all, Todd Macovsky's worst day is many, many people's best day. So
that is absolutely true.
Don't let him fool you with that. It was
true.
So much fun. We had a little picnic outside. It was a whole barbecue afternoon. And it was just really, really exciting. And just like Todd, this was my first cast recording that I got to be a part of. So I was thrilled.
Did you do it all in one day?
We did.
No. One day?
I thought it was 2 days.
Was it 2 days?
Yeah, I think so.
Can I tell you something? It was originally, we were a big hit in LA, and Bruce, I forgot his name, Maurice Saraband, he wanted to record the show.
Mm-hmm.
And he recorded, I think, Gay 90s Musical. And then right before the recording was going to happen, he got cold feet and he dropped out.
Really?
So my husband and I, Richard, we joined up with Bob and Stephen Bates, and we produced the CD.
Oh, wow.
Smartest thing I ever did.
And it should be pointed out that CD, while it stands as the actual monument to that show as a musical, because those performances are all the original performances.
Right.
It's so good that when the show opened in New York, they did not record it again.
Oh, wow.
They changed the cover art, of course, but
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk to that producer, Mark Winkler. What the hell's going on?
Well, as I said, the guys were great, And one of the fun things I had as one of the producers of the CD with Bob and Stephen, is I got to talk to every little gay theater in the United States that produced the show, because I sold them the CD. So I talked to a lot of gay producers, and they were all struggling, and they were all fantastic, and I went to see a lot of the shows. And that was a wonderful experience.
And it also seems to me that, again, it's a great calling card for a show for a theater that doesn't know it. Here's the CD.
Yeah. And all the guys.
Yes, what? Oh, I think we lost Schrock.
We lost Bob again.
Well, it's Mexico. How many times can I say it? Pevsner. Now, David, you were. Is this the first thing of yours that was recorded?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Were you at the recording sessions?
No, I was still living in LA at the time, I believe. I mean, in New York. Where am I?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know where you are.
I came in to see the opening night of the show, I believe, but then I was living in New York.
God, I don't remember that at all. When did you end up moving?
98.
All right, so you were after, late.
90. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was very exciting to hear, to get the CD and kind of, you know, in fact, I remember the first time I played it, I told the story about my mom before, but I was so proud that songs that I had written made it, you know, got recorded. And I was home in Chicago, and I came home. My mom said, I really would love to hear the songs. And I just said how much, you know, it was not her thing. So I sat in, they didn't have a CD player, so I sat with my computer, stuck the CD into my computer. We sat and watched the computer like it was a radio. And then we got, and it's kind of going along, and I'm going like, oh, these are, some of my lyrics are kind of risque. Oh, that's funny. Ooh, that's weird. And then I got to the part where it said, if I shoot them on suckus, stick both in my mouth and suckus, a sudden gust of family shame attacks. I continue giving head and pretend that mom is dead, and my conscience and my thinker can relax. So, and here's that my mom, this is my mother. This is my mother. She goes, and then she goes, huh.
Wow.
Yeah, but she was very proud, and I was very proud. I thought the guys sounded just amazing, and you know, to get this in the mail was just one of my, you know, it's just one of those little milestones you hope will happen, you know.
Sure, and I'm sure for Mark too. I mean, they're not only your songs, but you were producing it, so that's had to been an even bigger thrill for you.
Oh yeah, it was a big thrill. You know, it was just charm. The show was charm. The CDs sold. I sold more CDs in the days when you could sell CDs. We sold. I'd say we sold at least 12,000 to 15,000 CDs.
Well, that's extraordinary. And wait, we've got Bob back. Hold on a second.
Everyone
Bob,
so
Bob,
had that CD.
Well, and Kenny, and I will say to Bob and Kenny's credit, the press all got one. Hello, I got one.
Good.
Yes, I mean, yeah.
Well, Kenny was a great press agent for the show.
Oh, I agree.
He was brilliant. You were brilliant, Kenny. We love you.
Yep.
It definitely stands as one of the, well, not that there have been all that, well, you know, it's definitely a highlight of my career. I have more memories and more stories about that show than almost anything else I've worked on in my entire career. Partly because I lived within walking distance of the theater.
Right.
And so I was at most performances, which is usually not the case on shows that I work on. And so everything that happened became a memory, you know, all these little silly things. Earlier you asked the question about the audiences, and I remember that one of the jokes backstage, Brian and Todd and the other guys, if the audience was relatively quiet, it made it much more difficult for them to do the show because they didn't know how the audience was taking it. And the joke backstage became, is that an audience or an oil painting?
The classic joke.
Because quite often those audiences, for whatever reason, would respond very unenthusiastically, and then at the curtain call they would leap to their feet.
Crazy.
And
the theater was small. And you're so close to the nudity, and I think, you know, they kind of have to get over that because there's like a penis, like, you know, and sometimes in the case of Tony Davis, the penis is like right up in your face. So that was stuff that people, I think, you know, they were uncomfortable, but the show was so funny and the guys were so gregarious that they were able to get over it. But there's still the difference between just watching it and kind of chuckling and that you do when you're drunk, you know. So
you're right.
They always loved it.
Yeah, no,
Billy, I'm having a horrible time with my internet.
That's okay.
So I'm going to have to go.
Well, we're going to just finish. We're going to finish up. Bob, let me ask you. So the show obviously did what it was intended to do. It did save the Celebration Theater.
Yes, it did. And, you know, it's been a fabulous, wonderful adventure because it's played continuously for 22 years until the virus hit someplace in the world, from Helsinki to Oslo. You know, it's been a wonderful ride. I'm very proud of the show, and it wouldn't have happened without you guys, you know, the original. I'm getting goosebumps. The original cast and the writers. You know, I am so grateful for all of you to have been a part of this. It's just been wonderful.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for coming in from Mexico, even with the internet troubles. I really appreciate it.
Yes. You know, it's Mexico.
Are you still a U.S. citizen?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay, make sure you vote.
I will
All right,
vote.
that's what I'm checking.
Yes.
All right, just making sure.
Yes.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, everybody. I love you.
Bye, Bob.
Love you back. Bye.
Tell Peter hi.
Oh, well, there you go. He's gone. So now let's just close with this. Kenny, so you had the longest run in terms of, well, I guess the composers as well, but you were there from beginning to ending. What was it like in terms of closing the show at the celebration? Was it like, okay, we've beat this horse, or is it's time? I mean, was it bittersweet at all?
Well, you know, that's a really interesting question. I hadn't thought about that for a long time. I think that it felt like it was time. It felt, I think I felt like it had run its course, but not in a bad way.
Right.
You know, the thing about show business that I've always found, especially the theater business, that I've always found so interesting is that, you know, the problem is nobody ever wants to close a hit show.
Sure.
And so even though audiences were smaller, or, you know, the demand was smaller, people were still coming to see it. And we must have announced the closing of the show about 6 times before we remember that, Mark?
Yeah.
We kept announcing the closing, you know, final 4 weeks, final 6 weeks. And finally I said, and by the time the show ended, by the way, the administration at Celebration had completely changed.
Right.
So I kept saying, and so they were the ones that couldn't really decide what they wanted to do about keeping it running or not.
Right.
And kept changing their minds and saying, well, let's do just Saturdays and Sundays. And then, so after about the 6th, you know, I actually sent out a listing to the press that said, final 4 weeks, we really mean it this time. Because it got crazy. But I think it was time. It had run its course and it did what it was supposed to do. And it was just, you know, history was made and friendships were forged. And, you know, and again, I hark back to that first preview when Bob and I were standing in the corner watching and thinking, what? You know, Bob, I remember Bob saying to me, literally, what have I done? He just, because we just didn't know. And by the way, real quickly, not to contradict Bob, because
I'll contradict him.
Okay, I don't believe Bruce Valanche's material ever saw the light of day.
My recollection was it didn't. Yeah,
he said we tried it at a couple of previews. I don't think that's true. Is that right?
I don't know.
I think it was before the very first preview that the decision was made to cut all that crap out. You know, I always used to joke about what Bruce did. I mean, he's so crazy talented. And you know, Bob used the term crossovers. And I always remember when 42nd Street opened on Broadway in 1980, David Merritt changed the credit of book by to lead-ins and crossovers by.
Wow.
Because he was trying to screw the book writers out of
the percentages.
Yeah. So I always used to joke that Bruce wrote lead-ins and crossovers, and they were, you know, yeah. So I don't think that I personally don't even remember seeing them in rehearsal. I know they were there, but when that rehearsal, I somehow never saw a sequence that was, you know, a crossover thing just to kill dead air. But there was no dead air. You know, the lights went down on one song and came up on the next song.
Right, exactly.
And I think that too is what made it so successful. As Bob said, he kind of glossed over it. He said he didn't want the audience to have time to think.
I think that's true.
And it was because it was just like once that show started, it just took off. And for 90 minutes, audiences laughed and applauded, and there was, I don't know, a few tears, I guess, and
some people wondering where the dog was.
God,
and dog.
I had forgotten that till this moment. So yeah, anyway, so I'm guessing that Todd and Brian, because you were in it, how long were each of you in it?
So I was in it for the first 4 months, and then I left to do a cruise ship gig. And I came back into it, I think, just as a replacement, only like when they needed me, I think. Yeah, but not till the very end. I think I was not in the last few months of it, because I remember being able to see the show before it closed, which was very interesting to see a show, to see a role that you created.
What about you, Brian? How long had you been in it?
I think I did it for a year, but like I said, towards the end of me being involved in it, I was kind of there just to assist in putting people into the show. So,
right. Brian, didn't you go into Pigs right after that when Pigs Fly?
Was either Pigs was right after that or Last Hairdresser?
Oh God, I remember both. I think Pigs was before Last Hairdresser.
Was it?
I think you went. I think you went because we did West Pigs Fly together.
Right. It was really cool to meet David doing Naked Boys as the composer, and then to be able to be in a show with him, which was just as crazy. From no clothes to only clothes, and more clothes, and more clothes, and more clothes. But yeah.
Did either of you, Todd or Brian, did you ever do anyone else's role in the show?
No.
Okay, so you never sang any of the. Was there a song you coveted?
Oh, I mean, I would have loved to have done Naked Maid because it was such a great song. Yeah, that's it. I think Brian and I had the best songs in the show.
I liked Radio On because it was kind of like a country pop song, and it seemed like a real singer song. And I guess I had that probably.
We had the non-singer in the show singing that song.
That's true.
It's very true. Now,
everybody loved Chris. He had a wonderful quality, but singing wasn't like the greatest.
No, but for some reason that song fit him perfectly. Like he was so incredibly charming, and it fit the range that he had. Like it sat really well in his voice.
Yeah, you'd say it great though, Brian.
Yeah, well, thanks. But anyway, I did like that because of that, because I just had I had the patter songs, I had the funny songs, and then Window to Window was the only singer song that I had. But they were all challenging. Naked Maid was a challenging song to sing and to dance around and do all this shtick. Thank you very much, David Pevsner.
I do what I can.
Oh my God, it was rough.
I remember you bending over with a feather duster vividly.
Well, yeah, but you could,
Don't forget, Brian, that was the first. You were right after the opening number.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Number. So at least for the first week or so, I hadn't quite built that into my body yet to know how to prepare finishing the opening number physically and breathing wise to get to the. So. I mean, I'm neurotic anyway, so whatever.
I had the third number in the show, and people would tell me after the first two numbers, they would look up at people's faces, and I'm like, oh, thank God. So,
was there anybody in the show who was distracting?
Trance.
Well, sorry you're not here, Trance.
We were backstage fluffing, and Trance was just all there.
I got it. I'm here.
Trance is trying to, retract it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I will. Can I just say a personal story that has nothing to do with this show, but it does tie in. Trust me. I had not been naked on stage when you guys did it, so when I reviewed it, I did not really have any empathy for anyone. And which of course is still in short supply in the Billy Masters library of skills. But at one point afterwards, I had been in a production of Making Porn where I did have to be naked, and I would maneuver it so that like I would get out of bed and put my feet on the floor and the shorts went up like in one swoop. And I was under a sheet with porn star Kyle Bradford, and who is allegedly rumored to have been with Tom Cruise, which I don't believe is true, I must say, contractually. And for somebody who's not been on stage, people should know there's nothing particularly sexy about it. And you're thinking show-wise, and like I can only speak for my penis, but at that point it does kind of retract a little bit, and it becomes an innie. And I remember Kyle Bradford was under the sheet, supposed to be like giving me a blowjob, and his head was supposed to bounce up and down. And at one point, he sees that I'm going to have to get up, and so he starts working it. And I'm under the sheet with him. I'm like, honey, don't waste your time. So anytime I saw nudity on stage afterwards, I'm like, do not judge a performer by what they look like on stage, because it's just not right.
It's not the way they look in normal life.
No, it is not at all.
And quite often,
when you were saying about nudity not being sexy on stage, I remember when I did Party, which would have real history to it.
Oh, right.
Every so often, one of the guys come back on stage and would have been fluffing backstage. And when it gets so hard, the audience all of a sudden goes like tightens up. So the guys from Chicago who did the show originally, they learned what to do. If someone started to get hard over there, they would all look at the audience and go, and the audience started to laugh, and it kind of took the air out of the balloon, and everything was fine again. But
were you going to say something, Kenny?
The audience goes.
I was just going to say that. I mean, it's not mine to say, obviously, because I wasn't on the stage. But I distinctly remember people asking the boys all the time, "How do you not get aroused?"
Yeah, right.
And the guys used to say, "Oh,
it's not a problem.
It is not about getting aroused."
Lyrics to remember lyrics.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Was there any time that anyone did get aroused during a show? Not even you two, but just anyone that you saw?
Trance.
Trance.
Yeah, in the gym.
I saw trance aroused.
Like the one guy who didn't need to get aroused got aroused. It was the gym scene where we were all kind of like touching each other, and the fog was going, and I'd look down and hello, he'd be right there.
And then
God love him.
The audience went, "Ow!"
Let me tell you, I seem to recall that trance didn't really need to get aroused.
No.
Right.
No.
It was and I will say, since he's not here, I'll give him, it was quite beautiful, actually.
He's gorgeous.
Yeah.
He's gorgeous.
Yeah. Oh, and talented. Let's also say and talented.
Yeah.
Well, that too. Yeah.
Is there anybody who you thought got cast in the show who wasn't talented and just got cast because of his looks or his dick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just asking.
One.
Well, that's my
replacement.
See Bedford Schofield. He didn't sing in the show. He was just really, really cute, right?
Right. He did not sing in the show.
That's true. That's true.
He was just eye candy. I mean, he was great. I like him. He was fun.
And the only straight guy in the cast.
Oh, well, there you go.
You know what's so funny, though? You talk about Bedford being, like the gorgeous guy. He was. But just like the show having this charm, he was a straight, good-looking guy that also had old school charm about him. Like he was not intimidating, good-looking guy,
right?
Or alienating. He was just really cute and cool. So he like completely matched the rest of the show.
Right. And I think that's really a way to end it, is that we can say that the show, you need actors, you need singers, you don't need, but it's always nice to have good looking guys. And in Trance's case, a good penis. But what you really need more than anything else in this show is charm. Because if you don't have charm, I don't think it lands, frankly.
And spirit. Because if
that's true.
The spirit of the show, if there's anything that you're a little iffy about, like I can imagine that there wasn't a single one of you when you started who went, "No, I don't want to do that." because you have to dive in, and anytime you pull away from it at all, it makes the audience uncomfortable. And the original guys, were so game and had such great spirit about it, and there was never a bit of shame about being in that show. Where they're in New York, I know there were a couple moments where that happened. It just makes the audience uncomfortable. So you guys, bravo to you.
Yeah, absolutely. That Tom Bianchi photo shoot, by the way,
yes,
that was at the very first rehearsal.
Yes.
And actually, I got to tell you, I didn't want to contradict Bob.
Oh, please, I love it.
Tom did not take that photograph. That photo, the production photos that we used to give to the press were taken by a guy named Craig Schwartz.
Oh, right.
And
a nice Jew.
And he's a very nice Jew. And those
and this one
and that one, yeah.
That's
and
Tom.
There's actually a picture of Fight the Urge with and Todd actually featured in it with T. Bedford over on the right side.
Yeah.
Those three pictures were the money shots. The picture on the barbecue and the Fight the Urge. And Craig took those. The truth is, with all due respect to Mr. Bianchi, those photos, I understand why Bob wanted them to be taken, but they didn't turn out to be what any of us thought they would be. And they were trying to be like art shots.
Right, which doesn't sell a show.
We didn't need it. But the reason I bring it up is that first rehearsal, some of the guys were meeting for the very first time.
Most of us.
Wow.
And Bob said, "Okay, everybody, close off." and that's how it started, David. From that very first day, I mean, I had to give it to Bob. He knew what he was doing with regard to that business of being comfortable with your own self. And if you're comfortable in it, it's like you were in on the joke. You got it, and so the audience relaxed. And without everything you're saying, without that, you had nothing.
You can't sell the joke if you're not in it.
Yeah.
Right.
It wouldn't have worked if everybody in that show had not been like, "Yay, naked!" If anybody was kind of like this, forget it. They would have stuck with a sore thumb.
One of my favorite sayings in the world is, "If you cannot laugh at yourself, you're missing half the joke."
Yeah, well, that it's just like they say that there's always one person in the group that everyone doesn't like, and if you don't see them, you may be that person. and where is Bob? No, I'm just kidding. No. We love him. Bad internet and all. I know. I'm just.
Listen, no Bob, no show.
No, and that is true. And I think that he got a great cast together. I think we had a great cast for the show today. Thank you for joining me. This was so much fun. Kenny knows when I started doing this show back in March, I said, what do you think if we can do this? And Kenny, I have to give you credit because you really put me in touch with most people that were here, and even the ones that couldn't make it, who did get back to me and wanted to come. But I couldn't have done this without you.
Spoke to Tony, and you spoke to Vince, and you
spoke to Vince and Mike and Trance.
Wow,
pretty much.
I got out a Ouija board and got in touch with Steve. What the hell?
Well, oh my God,
it was lovely.
Talk about Robert Mitchum.
Beautiful.
Well, and Todd, you ought to be opposite him and Marry Me a Little.
Yes. Oh, yes.
The male historical male version.
Yes, and it was
of Sondheim's Marry Me a Little.
Absolutely. That was such a great experience. Steve was amazing, one of a kind. We actually I think it was during or right after Naked Boy Singing, we formed a group, four
right.
Group. Yeah.
I remember that group. We went
we played the Baked Potato
on Sunset Boulevard.
Yep, the Baked Potato.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the glamour of show business, from the Celebration Theater to the big potato.
Exactly.
You know, I don't know if Bob knows. I forgot. I wanted to mention, you know, what was Celebration Theater, where all this history was made, is now a dispensary.
Yes, it is.
And I actually was. I don't know if I told you this, Brian and Todd, but I was actually in there. I've been in there once. And the reason I was in there is too stupid to go into, but it was so freaky to walk in there and see what. And then when I went, the way they have it, you have to wait outside,
right?
And then when
I've
they
seen the lines outside, it's craziness.
When they open the door and they let you in, you basically go into what was the stage.
Oh, right, they took the walls down.
And here I am, you know, the big homo, telling the guy behind the counter. I said to him, "Did you know this used to be a theater?" And he was like,
"And that these guys used to be standing there." You know, the money you could make if you worked at a dispensary. That
right, exactly.
I want to thank you again so much. I'm going to say goodbye to you each individually, but if you stay around, I can talk to you once we go off the air, because now we're over 2 hours. We are officially longest show in Billy Masters live history.
Woo-hoo! We did it.
So I want to say thank you to our behind the scenes persons, Mark Winkler. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for all your help and for all the photos. I appreciate it. And to, of course, David Pevsner for great songs and for just being beautiful. And people, go check out Musical Comedy Whore. Did I get right? All right, good.
It's great.
Yay.
And it's great. It's great. I haven't seen the video, but I was there the night it was shot. Thank you for being here, David. And of course, I have to just go, but I have to leave. Obviously, Ken has to be the last one. So I'm going to say, Brian, thank you so much for doing this. I had to look because the camera's in front of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. And we all go back so long. I'm glad we were able to remember it.
To when we were 15.
Exactly. Well, I was a little older, but all right.
Everybody's getting younger with each passing minute here.
I know, now it's 15. My God. Bye, Brian. And Todd, of course, who is also my love interest in my own play, Hollywood Uncovered. Todd, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sweetheart. And of course, Ken Werther, the wise and powerful. Whenever I talk about him, you know I'm talking about Ken Werther. I look, so much of my career I owe to you, and I just want you to know I appreciate that you have always been in my corner, like you are with so many people. So thank you for doing this.
Incredibly kind of you to say, and I am
thrilled. Are you still with the child?
Yes.
Oh, okay. He's dating a child.
I am. I'm dating a child.
All right. Well, you know,
which, by the way, is why I was in the dispensary.
Oh, well, see, of course, the children, you know, got to keep them happy. But thank you for doing the show, and thank you for helping put it together. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. It was so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Or if you stay, I'll talk to you afterwards. Sure. Everyone, thank you for watching Billy Masters Live. Thursday, huge show, big surprise guests. Nikki Blonsky from the film version of the musical Hairspray. Garrett Clayton, cutie little Garrett Clayton is going to be here. Link from the TV version of Hairspray. And big surprise guests from the original cast, national tour. Some people we even mentioned here tonight. So thank you for watching Billy Masters Live. I am, of course, your host, Billy Masters. We'll see you Thursday. Take care of each other. And just remember, if we're here, we're live. Bye, guys.